Okay, I'm just leaving now, heading for the courts. It's 2 minutes past 9. Take us about half an hour, 45 minutes to get there, depending on the traffic. So we should be there in a short while, and let's see how we get on. It's a lovely day here in Birmingham. Jay, my son's ready. He's driving us there. See you in a short while. Okay, so we're on our way now. We should be at the court hopefully before 10 o'clock. Our hearing time's 10:30, so we should be there in plenty of time, really. I'm just looking through the case notes. Let me give you some background to this and why we're going to court today. So as a landlord, unfortunately, sometimes we have situations, and as a landlord and as an agent, where we'll have tenants that just choose not to pay their rent, and then we have to go through a court's process to effectively evict them and get the property back. I mean, fortunately, it doesn't happen too often. We manage hundreds of rooms around Birmingham and the surrounding areas, and it's very rare for us to have a situation like this where we have to take somebody to court. Not really something I enjoy doing very much, and as I said, fortunately, it doesn't happen too often. I think in the last probably 2 years, this will be the third time that I'm having to do this, so not too often. And I have some friends, unfortunately, pretty much every month they're in court trying to sort issues out with their tenants. So we like to think we're a little bit more careful in terms of who we put into the property in the first place. So let me give you some background on this. So let's call this tenant JW, which is his initials. This is somebody that took a room on with us, made an application in January earlier this year, January 2019, and a nice enough chap, made an application for a room with us then in a property that just been newly renovated to a very nice standard. So the first tenant in that property rents £449, so just under 450 quid. And so we took a sizable deposit off him, £1,500, and that would have been probably because his application a little bit weaker. So again, you in a situation where somebody who maybe ordinarily would have been borderline and declined, and you look to see how you can help somebody as well, and maybe progress and get on with their life by offering them an opportunity to rent a room where maybe other agents wouldn't have. And here's a classic example of where you try and help somebody and it backfires. Generally speaking, as I said earlier, it's very, very rare for us to have these situations. So I'd say 97-98% of the time it's rare that somebody we've had a gut feeling about, that give this person a chance, that they've actually come back and caused a problem. But what I can say is every time I have given somebody a chance and we've ended up in court, it has been somebody that we kind of offered a chance to. So there's a learning there. So he paid his rent at the beginning when he moved in for the first month, and then he paid his second rent payment, which was March. So he paid February's rent when he moved in and paid March's rent, and then after that he started missing payments, not making all his payments on time, or just not making them at all. So he made 2 further payments, which took him up to May. They were both very late, and then after that decided just not to pay. So in this situation, what we do is the team in our office try and talk to them, understand what's going on, what we can do to help them and support them to get things back on track. But we weren't getting anywhere with this particular tenant in the sense they just refused to talk to us. Now, whether that's because they choose to bury their head in the sand, or whether that's because they deliberately have no intention of paying rent, I don't know. I'll let you be the judge of that. So when it gets to 2 months in arrears, we can serve a Section 8 notice. So 2 months in arrears is essentially 2 rent payments are being missing. So that's not necessarily 2 calendar months. So just looking at the paperwork here, we served a Section 8 notice in July. So once he missed his June payment and missed his July payment, we collect rent on the 1st of the month by direct debit. He cancelled his direct debit payments, by the way. On the 8th of July, we served the Section 8 notice. So 2 rent payments had been missed at that point. So that's when you can serve the Section 8 notice. It's not necessarily a case that has to be 2 full calendar months. And so you have to specify what ground you're serving the notice on. So our notice was on, just one second. on grounds 8 and grounds 11. So ground 8 is where they're in rent arrears, and ground 11 is when they're not paying their rent on time. So the 2 grounds. So you know, he hasn't really responded, he's just ignored us. So when that happens, that we then have to go through the process of applying to court to get a court date, which is where we're heading off to now. We use generally professional solicitors rather than trying to do all this stuff ourselves, to make sure that there's no mistakes, because it's very, very easy to trip up on this paperwork. So we'll be meeting our advocate there in a short while, who will represent us today, and I'll be there just to answer any questions. So not good for me, because it wastes a good half day for me. I have to turn up in court and sit there, probably say very little. The advocate will deal most. If there's any questions, I'll answer those. Personally speaking, I think it's a really unfair system. You know, if someone's taking on a product or a service and they're consuming it, they should be paying for it, right? And if they're not, they shouldn't continue to be able to use it. So you know, if you hired a car, for instance, and you decide to stop paying it, what happens? They come and take it off you, because it wouldn't be a very fair system for the person hiring the car to keep having use of that car and just choose not to pay. It's the same thing in property. You wouldn't go to Sainsbury's, fill up your trolley with shopping, head to the tills and say, hey, I'll be popping back once I've used up this food and I've got some money, I'll come and pay you. But it's a crazy thing. That's what happens when for landlords, when they have tenants that don't pay. They have to go through this process that takes months and months. So now at this stage, we're what, 2.5 grand in arrears, where he's just stopped paying rent. And even if we win today, as it were, win in inverted commas, it's still going to take us probably a good 2 or 3 months, in my experience, before we actually get the property back. That's thousands and thousands of pounds of losses for the landlord. That's why I think the system's so unfair. In my mind, it's just theft. When someone owes you money in this way, they continue to use the space but not pay you. It's just theft. This is my opinions anyway, so I'll stop with the ranting now. So that's the background of the case. So that's where we're kind of heading off to now. One of the things I want to do in this video, just share with you how long it actually takes. It takes such a long time to get to the point where you actually get the keys back on the property. So today's video is just really about the court date. If I get an opportunity, I'll do another video to kind of timeline the whole process in terms of how long does it take. So we're October, early October right now, and the notice was served in July, so it's taken us months just to get to this point. So I hope it's making sense, and I'll do another video in a short while. So we're just heading in now into the court. That's the court building over there, Dudley Court. We're just kind of 9:59, so pretty much on time to meet our advocate. So we'll go inside now, meet the advocate, have a chat with them, run through the case. We're scheduled for 10:30, but the reality is I don't think we're going to be going in at 10:30, but hopefully we won't be too long, and then I'll give you an update when we come back out. Hi, so I've just come out of court just now. We've been in there about 2 hours. It's only 12 o'clock right now. Most of that time we're just sitting around, just waiting. We're literally in with the judge for about 3 or 4 minutes. It's very straightforward. The tenant didn't show up, which is not unusual in these situations. In fact, it can be better for us because, in my experience, if they turn up, sometimes that can cause delays in getting things done. But it was quite straightforward. So we've got a 14-day eviction notice. That means that the tenant has 14 days to leave the property. We've got a judgment for the money that's owed. Effectively, it's like a CCJ, so a money order that money is owed legally, and also a payment towards costs. That means that they have to make a contribution towards the legal costs of bringing this case, which all on the face of it sounds fantastic. However, things you have to remember is it doesn't mean that tenant's actually going to leave in 14 days. In fact, if they choose not to, we've still got to come back to court again. So it's a victory today, but it's actually just one stepping part of the process. So it may be that we get the property in 14 days. It may be that we have to come back here again and look to get bailiffs there to evict them. And with regards to money orders, that's again, it's fantastic, but if they choose not to pay and they haven't got the money, we've still got those issues as well. So overall, great results. Hope you found this useful. Look forward to seeing you soon.